So then the issue is, what if they try to develop a covert program? Now, one of the advantages of having inspections across the entire production chain is that it makes it very difficult to set up a covert program. You know, there are only so many uranium mines in Iran, and if, in fact, we're counting the amount of uranium that's being mined and suddenly some's missing on the back end, they got some splaining to do.
A little Ricky Ricardo imitation. Welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show, folks. That was Barack Obama at his news conference today talking about the Iranian deal, and that was specifically addressing, apparently, if we know of nuclear sites, we could inspect it anytime, 24/7. But if we suspect something is going on somewhere and they say no, we can't inspect it for 24 days. And he's defending that. 24 days to something we might say, wait, that doesn't smell right. So they would have time to clean it up. It just speaks to the nature of the deal, my friends. Now, I want you to watch Major Garrett ask a question about our 4 prisoners still being held in Iran and how the president responded. This, to me, was the exchange of the press conference.
Can you tell the country, sir, why you are content with all the fanfare around this deal to leave the conscience of this nation, the strength of this nation unaccounted for in relation to these 4 Americans?
I got to give you credit, Major, for how you craft those questions. The notion that I'm content as I celebrate with American citizens languishing in Iranian jails? Major, that's nonsense. And you should know better.
Yeah. I don't know better. I agree with Major. And this president should have insisted on the release of those prisoners prior to any deal. But he doesn't have it in him. He doesn't have it in him. And then they asked if he could take Bill Cosby's Presidential Medal of Honor away. And here's what he said.
Would you revoke the Medal of Freedom from Bill Cosby?
There's no precedent for revoking a medal. We don't have that mechanism. And as you know, I tend to make it a policy not to comment on the specifics of cases where there might still be, if not criminal, then civil issues involved.
Just incredible. Did you know that it's the president's policy not to talk about cases where there's pending litigation, civil or criminal? I mean, Louis Gates, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, right on down the list. But when he decides he doesn't want to say something, then I have this policy. Yeah, it's a policy, like a red line to Syria or Russia, the red line. Doesn't this get tired? Anyway, he did though, say that there's no precedence, nothing in place to take away the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is what it was. I made that mistake. And also he said that he went on to, which we didn't hear, talk about he said if someone gives someone a pill to make them have sex with them, that's rape. So he did address it that way. Joining us now is Republican strategist and political analyst and author of Hail Mary, the 10-Step Playbook for Republican Recovery, Ford O'Connell. Ford, welcome. So you saw the press conference, and let's talk a little bit about Major Garrett's question, where he really raked the president over the coals and took it to him on leaving our hostages in Iran and saying that he threw the head of the Joint Chiefs under the bus, or at least that's what many in the Pentagon feel, by giving Iran the ability to get conventional weapons once again down the road.
Well, look, Major Garrett definitely struck a sore spot with the president because Major Garrett basically asked President Obama, are you content with leaving the 4 American hostages behind? I think that it was really how Major Garrett asked the question, but you're absolutely right. President Obama is trying to spin what is really a terrible deal to the American public, and he's going to pull out all the stops to do it.
Yeah, and I guess Garrett has come under scrutiny and under focus. I didn't see or hear anything disrespectful about the question or the manner in which it was asked. And I got to tell you, George W. Bush went through a lot worse, a lot more often than Barack Obama has when it comes to dealing with the press.
Well, this is a press that wants to basically pamper President Obama and wants to hold them up as an exemplar of what future presidents can be, because remember, much of what he stands for, they agree with. They like appeasement. They like diplomacy, even bad diplomacy, because that's better than actually anything else. And it's okay for America to give away its competitive advantages, because frankly we're just global citizens in the world, and America is just a border that no one else in the media cares about.
How do you feel about the Republicans giving away their right to veto this as a treaty with a majority vote in the Senate? And now, of course, they'll probably vote this agreement down. The president will veto it. And by all accounts, they're not going to be able to muster the votes to override a veto, especially in the Senate. Why on earth would the Republicans have capitulated on this Corker bill ever?
Well, let's get to the first part. You're absolutely right. The Iran deal is going to go through because all President Obama has to do is get 1/3 plus one member of either house of Congress. So it could be the House or the Senate.
Right.
It's going to be next to impossible for Republicans to get 2/3 in both chambers. That said, though, remember, President Obama started this in motion. I'm not as harsh on Senator Corker as some of the others. I don't like the way this legislation's set up, but understand something. President Obama was going to go it alone without us anyway, and this was a way for Corker to at least have 60 days review. Let me say this, though, from a campaign perspective, the mere fact that Corker got this lame bill out there and it allows, 2/3 to basically overcome the president's veto is a smart thing, because if Iran really messes up here, the Republicans have got a great 2016 campaign issue. Because remember, if Hillary Clinton becomes president, Steve, the Iran deal is going to stay in place.
Yeah, well, no kidding. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about Hillary Clinton. Monmouth poll out today. Democratic voters and Democratic-leaning voters, her approval rating, or favorability rating, is at 51%, down from 57% in June and down from 60% in April.
Look, Democratic voters think that she's untrustworthy and dishonest, but remember, Democrats like to win. Trust me, they're not going to make Bernie Sanders the nominee. They're not going to make Martin O'Malley the nominee. What's important here is how much does this put Hillary Clinton crosswise with independent voters when she wins the nomination. That's what she's worried about. She's worried about the general election, and if Republicans are going to take advantage of this, they're going to have to basically have all their ducks in a row, but this is not a good sign for Hillary Clinton.
All right, and two issues regarding Donald Trump on the heels of yesterday's USA Today poll showing him with 17.5% in the lead nationwide among the Republican candidates. Today we have an ABC News poll among Republicans. He has an approval rating of 57%, disapproval at 40%.
It's not surprising to me, Steve. He's fighting with drug lords on Twitter. He's showing himself to be a fighter, and he's bringing an energy to the race that the conservative base of the Republican Party has been whining about for the past two presidential cycles. This is a good sign for Donald Trump. I will say this, he's going to have to show a little bit more that he's a serious candidate, but I have to admit, he's doing impressive things, and he's tapping into a nerve of the Republican Party when it comes to border security and immigration and sanctuary cities, and frankly, I'm happy he's doing it.
And you know what? No question now, apparently, that he will be on that stage during the Fox debate, because he has apparently filed with the FCC and says he's worth $10 billion, so actually an increase from the estimate he gave verbally when he announced, and he made about $365 million. So he's serious. You know, I always said, and others always said, he'll never run. He's never going to open up his finances. Well, he has.
Well, at $365 million he made last year, I certainly need his financial planner. That said, though, this does play into his narrative that I'm not going to be beholden to anyone. The $10 billion may look pompous, but he's trying to really tap that populist message that I'm going to fight for you, and I think this plays into that narrative. The only question is, where does he take it from here?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Always great to talk to you, Ford. Thank you very much, sir.
You got it, Steve. Thank you.
All right, folks, so we got Trump, and we got Hillary, and we got the Obama press conference, and we're going to talk about it all and more with the Malzberg panel, which is on deck with Jane Velez Mitchell and Brad Hirschfield. No, I'm not Howard Cosell. We're coming back.